Today and welcome to this Ignite podcast number 2, numero dos. Great to be here. I'm Gus, and over here we have Antonio.
Hello, everyone.
Great to be back here, Antonio, and welcome back in to our second podcast, beaming in all the way from New Zealand over to the States. Well, I'll just give a bit of an intro to start us off. This whole session, number 2, is on the heartbeat of Ignite, to give people out there a real understanding of what Ignite's about, where it came from and why it started. So Ignite really came out of forming my mission, knowing what my mission was. And that came at a very young age, realizing doing these courses, being trained, having experience of seeing what was happening in the world, seeing what really made me come alive, seeing what made me excited, and then actually being guided and instructed. I actually had the privilege of having my mum, who was right into understanding a lot of this stuff early on in my life. And she introduced me to books like What Color's Your Parachute, The Path, a number of books like that, which really shaped my mind to give me insight into what my mission could be. And then I had it in my heart for a long time. I was a youth worker for 12 years. And during that time, in my 20s, I kept getting the message, it's time to nail your colors to the mast. And I didn't quite know what that meant, but as I looked deeper inside me, I could see that I was partly being triggered out of fear, staying in my job because I needed to pay the bills. But then I also had a huge desire to achieve a far bigger mission in the form of Ignite. And so that's really where it came out of. I carried this in for a number of years before it materialized, and I really decided to start my mission, to start my career on a new path.
That's amazing, because Ignite has been introduced to me and Violet a year ago when we met in Bali. You blew us away with all the courses you had created. And for those of you who don't know, Ignite is a life coaching program. We originally had a podcast introducing you, so I'll probably link that one too. It gets to know our stories just a little bit. And I had no idea what to expect. When I first met you and interviewed you guys, you just kept blowing my mind away. And you were just flowing with your experiences and how you created Ignite based off of all of your life transformations. Honestly, maybe that resume goes very long with the world traveling you've done, the psychedelic adventures you've experienced, the books, the mentors, the workshops, and the countless hours of research. Like what has been the pivotal learning experiences that allowed you to make a melting pot of courses and ideas to offer to the world? So what have been big factors in your development?
Well, if we use, for example, once you do the subconscious course, those who do that will understand the hierarchy of systems that we have. And so if I look at my references, we look at what level I was influenced during my childhood, I can pinpoint key figures that really had a big impact on what was possible. Guys like Tony Robbins, guys like Jim Rohn, certain mentors in my life, certain big figures that were inspirational. And I could see the impact a teacher could have on another person's life, and someone that could inspire someone. That blew me away, seeing how powerful their influence could be. But not only just their influence, their charisma, but the quality of their message, to not just change you in a moment, to get pumped up with enthusiasm. But the idea is, enthusiasm's temporary, but true insights are long-term. And when you combine inspiration with true long-term insight and true life change, to me, you can't get a better combo than that. So when I look back at my big influences, I wasn't the most intelligent kid out of the blocks. I wasn't the most academic kid. I didn't find academic things easy to flow. For me, I needed a reason to study maths. I needed a reason to study science. I couldn't just sit down and absorb the information. So whatever I learned, and I did learn success, and certain teachers, and my mum was a big part of that, was getting addicted to this feeling of success and breakthrough. I had to do it through sheer grit and determination. And I learned to access my deep insight side of me just through persistence, and then I discovered a new gift. But it wasn't like it was flowing for me like I saw a lot of my peers. And so that taught me a number of things. It taught me I could transform my life through upgrading myself and learning new things. I learned that big, powerful people can have influence in your life. And if they've got a great message, that can inspire you at another level. And other big areas was probably, some of my psychedelic experiences before that, some of my spiritual encounters. And then also my overall desire to see people that were struggling helped. That was a massive part of the heartbeat of Ignite. And that was kind of right through the core of what I chose to do in youth work, youth pastoring, studied social work for 2 years at university, a number of those things. You combine all those things together, that's kind of that hybrid of where it came from.
Man, it's amazing. Just even your explanation are teaching points that have oceanic depths to them. But to take it a different direction, what's the mission or vision that you have for it? What's Ignite trying to accomplish?
Great. Well, I love the question. Antonio. And so we come back down to these three things. And I think the more simple, the better, the more profound, but the more powerful. So what it is, and I got this out of the book, The Path, which really helped me to crystallize my mission. But I like to bring it down to 3 key verbs and 1 key cause. So my 3 verbs are this: create, educate, inspire. Now, those are the 3 verbs that are at my core that will stay with me for life. They've never changed throughout my life, and they never will change. It's what, when I do them, I come alive. There's no currency that can compete with that. It's the currency for life. So number 1, create, for me was create an environment for people to excel mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Now, I was lucky enough to have a mother that was able to do that with me at a key stage of my life. Not always, but at a key stage of my life. She introduced me to the concept of the 7 habits, and she provided an environment for me to absolutely thrive and love my life. And it was at a really key juncture in my life where we'd change around different cities, and I was discombobulated. I was, a young youth who was trying to find a self-identity, trying to find his meaning in life. And we traveled 5 times in different locations from the ages of 8 to 12, 13. And I was feeling quite fragile. Imagine your friendship groups being ripped away from you every so often. So anyway, around that time of age 12, I was introduced to the 7 habits. And not only that, I was playing elite football at the time, rugby for my school. And Mum was helping me develop with this concept of the 7 habits. What I felt during that time was unconditionally accepted, a place where I could really thrive. I had a system where I could thrive physically. I felt great. A system where I could learn and stimulate my brain psychologically and mentally. I could learn new things. And I was learning music and instruments. And I had this holistic sense of well-being. And I realized at that point, when I look back on my life, I thought that's one of the things that I wanted to take with me to impart to other people, that I'd been blessed. And I didn't have that all the time, but when I had it, I thrived like crazy. And so that's the create part. The educate people with life-transforming insights came through people like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and certain people that when they would speak and you would get an insight, it would change your life. Have you ever had that experience, Antonio? And I know you have. For those out there listening, you had that experience where you hear something and the light bulb goes on, you go, wow, that was a life-changing moment. So I can think back to guys like Jim Rohn, who this stays with me for today. He says the mindset of the rich is this: the first 30%, give 10, passive invest 10, and active invest 10, and you've got the recipe for success. And I've applied that at 19 and I had a house by 27 just by applying those principles, But what I've done specifically for Ignite is I've collected all of these nuggets of gold, and they have been thousands of nuggets of gold now, and I've put them into these sequential courses that literally integrate not those nuggets individually, but they get integrated in a integrated system. So the nuggets build upon each other. So you're not getting one random insight, which was profound enough to change my life. But imagine getting the insight on top of the insight that's strategically placed. So the insights are now taking you in a certain direction, and they have exponential growth. So that was the second part of Ignite. And if we look at the third part of Ignite, it is to inspire you to find and follow your passion, right? So number 1, you've got to create the environment for you to love your life and just to thrive, be a healthy person and holistically. Number 2, get educated, have amazing insights. Number 3 is your life mission. And so the heartbeat of Ignite is this, that you would find and follow your passion. Why? Because when I discovered my gifting, my passion, my direction, it changed life. suddenly life went from kind of like just doing a job, occupation, to occupation, something you love doing. And so the first part of it is to detect it. It's not like it's just going to be dumped in front of you on a platter. Well, some people might get that, but it's very rare that you're just going to somehow stumble across it. There's a bit of work that needs to be done to really sift out and find what your particular area of mission is. Secondly, it's knowing how to set up a plan so you can attain that. It's all very well to know it, but then if you don't know how to attain it, it's just as well as not knowing it. So the third part of Ignite is really focusing on setting you up and gearing you up to have a mission in the world and to do what you love to do. Do what you've been put on earth to do, basically, which is a unique system of how we tie in all the best parts of you and make it in your nexus, your sweet spot, so you can just give your gift to the world. The other thing that I wanted to focus on here was the heartbeat of Ignite was the actual cause, what it's all about. And so when you do the career course, you understand there's 3 verbs, but also there's the cause, the reason for what you're doing it. And for me, the cause comes back to this setting the spirit free of the individual. And if you do the subconscious course, you understand that the spirit is at the deepest part of ourselves, the part that gets shut away in order to survive emotionally and socially in our socially constructed societies. And so what happens is early on, we learn to conform, we learn to shut parts of our personality away, we learn to inhibit ourselves. And the whole mission and cause of Ignite is to bring out back to life that very essence of the thing that you were born to be, which got shut away. And so the more your spirit can be free to live a life of love, filled, passionate freedom, is the heartbeat of Ignite. That's the real cause. That's why we're doing Create. That's why we're doing Educate. That's why we're doing Inspire, so that you can free your spirit to be what you're created to be. And so that's in essence the ultimate end game. You know, the fear or love, and the idea that, and that's what Ignite's designed to do. It's to get us out of our reptilian brain. See, the whole matrix is designed, the matrix that we don't see is designed to keep us in our reptilian brain, which is based out of fear, fight, and flight, which is obvious because we're in the system when we're socially conformed because we don't want to feel rejection. We don't want to feel apart from it because that's our lifeline to acceptance. That's our lifeline to survival, both physically, emotionally. And so what happens is, we pay a price though. We pay a price in shutting down our spirit to receive conformity and acceptance. But Ignite teaches you that as you set yourself free from the matrix, make yourself independent financially, make yourself independent career-wise, emotionally, and actually grow and strengthen yourself, you go from your reptilian brain to your higher being brain, which is your neocortex, which then accesses your spirit, which enables you to actually bypass the rule book of the fight flight mode. It's like people that are in that mode, they can't relate to you in that same way. They can't control you in the same way they control others, because you're not bound by fear now. You're beyond that. You can now transcend it with love and transcend it with spirit, which is a whole nother experience.
And how vitally important is that in times of fear and panic? You're essentially describing a powerful leader. And people who own businesses, the owners of the business that I work at, they display leadership. They display high amounts of accountability and persistence and determination. Because of their efforts, I get to provide a great living for my family. And people who have a negative, pessimistic mindset close down business or didn't execute business or got caught. That's a whole nother story there. But when you are liberated, you can now unconsciously start liberating others. And essentially, that's just leaders helping people guide through dark times.
Yeah, 100%. So the number one rule in the 7 habits is to take responsibility for your life. But I think that transcends all successful people, that if you truly are taking responsibility, it's not about turning up to a job 9 to 5. You could turn up for 2 hours and you could take responsibility and do what it takes. It doesn't matter the hours, it matters the mindset and what the results are at the end of the day. So if you've got the mindset of responsibility, you do what it takes for the thing to run, and that's what I mean. That's how you can get out of fight flight mode and you take responsibility for whatever it takes.
Exactly. It's 7 habits again. You're proactive, take self-responsibility, 100% extreme ownership. And when you live by that, people gravitate to you and see your results. I think all personal success starts with your circle of influence. And, I know you have a life hack mini course. There's just a lot of tools. Like, how many different courses does Ignite offer?
Well, basically, I mean, the growing and counting. So pretty much 8, 9, and counting. We're looking at getting to 10 by the end of the year. And these are just pretty much 10 session courses that have been accrued over a lifetime of the best nuggets that I've come across. So I guess you go 10 times 10 sessions, that's 100 nuggets of gold right there in each of those sessions.
Great thing too is you've also successfully uploaded your financial course, right?
Yeah, right. So that's on the website now live, and it's all go. So yeah, people have gone through that course already, and already we've got quite a number of testimonials of people that have just had their lives changed through applying those concepts of Ignite Finances.
Yep, I strongly recommend anybody who is interested in help with their financial future to check out the link in the show notes and description. It's a great resource there, and then I know you offer one-on-one sessions. But that may change. I know that there's only X amount of people you can work with. I know we were talking about a little bit of the ideal work week or vision. How did you describe that?
Yeah, so the ideal, so in part of the course, of the career course, I get the participants to, once they've done their nexus, which is find their mission, and they're on their vision part of the vision part is we look at creating their dream week. If they were to put all their activities from their ideal work week in place, what would it look like? How many clients would they have? What activities would they be doing throughout the breadth of the week? And so the whole idea is you begin with the end in mind. Again, habit 2 from the 7 habits, but this in the form of a vision, you actually put into paper on blueprint how you want that week to look, and I'm now living the life that I created for myself, 10, 15 years ago. And I get to update that every year. And refine it and make it even better. But the actual blueprint I'm living out from 15 years ago, had I not had that dream and vision in my mind all those years ago, I wouldn't be living the life I am today. I would be reacting to my past. But because I proactively created the future, I'm now living the future. The best way to predict the future is to create it.
Exactly. Ignite principles left and right. What else would you say is important for the audience to learn about Ignite, about yourself? You are the creator there. Where are you drawing your inspiration from now? Where do you go from here?
Right. Well, for me, I'm really gleaning around all the world. I feel like I continually download all the different concepts that make sense to me, and then I kind of wait for inspiration to try and sort it out, and then I just go about creating the thing that gets melded together. So literally anywhere from Socrates to Aristotle to Jordan Peterson, Dave Riddell, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, you're looking at all these kind of Carl Jung, the psychedelic teachers, basically pulling from all of these different things. And one of my strengths after doing StrengthsFinder, if you've never done it, I recommend doing StrengthsFinder, finding your top 5 strengths. One of them is called connectedness, that I was labeled with. And how I see that working is it's the ability to connect things that most people wouldn't necessarily identify as connected. So one of the things that I think that I'm particularly gifted in here is collating all this different stuff and then seeing all the connections, how they branch together, understanding, the Myers-Briggs, the Carl Jung, StrengthsFinder, and how they match up according to your gifts, how they match up according to your subconscious, your voids become your values, all of that sort of stuff. And so where am I drawing from? I'm drawing from a huge wide array of resources, but I'm collating into something very unique. And it's the amalgamation of years and years, year upon year upon year of understanding the stuff and now putting it together in a model and a system that to me makes a whole lot more sense and is far more transformative than perhaps just neurolinguistic programming by itself. When it's put within a model like this, you go, oh, wow, that technique fits in with this because I see the model like this.
Incredible. And everyone has the power to do this. This is what you teach us in Ignite. Once you're in your creative zone, your nexus, once you're in your sweet spot, it's a beautiful place to be in. You get all kinds of new ideas and thinking and giving yourself the ability to think and getting your body prepared to be able to think like that is an art and science in its own. And the great part about Ignite, I would say too, is like you just said earlier, that they all fit together and they set you up and they build you up to where it has a very synergistic flow to it, and it creates the ball of energy like a snowball effect. It just picks up momentum and it grows and grows. And you do it not the way you think. You taught me ways that I wasn't familiar with. I used to be that traditional goal setter. I have to work out 5 times a week. I have to eat this many times a day. And that leads to burnout. And you taught me why. And you taught me why I wasn't really getting my results. And the best part about what you do, and it's a true testament of building value, is you can put out a fire if a fire comes up and then go back to the lesson. That's the unique thing about Ignite and life coaching is you're very versatile in many different areas. I think once you crack the code of learning effectiveness, you see the results. And that's somebody who can really make an impact in your life.
Yeah, 100%. You're exactly right on that. Ignite isn't designed to be rigid and to teach rigid structural ways of being and doing. It's based on principles. So it's based on ways that are going to be sustainable for each individual's life, depending on what they have. So rather than me teaching techniques and practices, which is what you're talking about, eat salad 5 times a day and drink water 5 times a day and exercise 5 times a week, instead of me telling you to do that, that might be the kiss of death. You know, as soon as you don't comply with that, you're not going to feel like journeying with me further because you can't adhere to the rules that I impose upon you. So instead of me doing that, I'm going to empower you to be your own judge, to be your own guide, but I'm going to be the one behind you, helping you take the tools and apply the tools. And you realize you're not trying to appease me with my program. I'm helping you forge the program that's designed for you based on principles that are sustainable. And so that's the beauty of Ignite. Yes, we have pre-packaged programs available, but they're never issued as the be-all and end-all. What's more issued is ultimately, as we go through levels of maturity, we will empower the individual to take increasing ownership of their health, of their well-being, based on principles that are going to be long-term healthy and sustainable.
Who do you feel resonates with the heartbeat of Ignite that you were describing? And essentially, who's the ideal client for you? Who do you think, who have you found resonate and who have you found are just not interested?
When you're talking about resonate, you're talking about people else that are coaches in the field, or you're talking about people that are clients in the field?
Both in general. Like, I know you might have seen a lot, but you know, what kind of ideal client do you have?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think if I'm talking, someone that might resonate from a big picture, something like Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, very similar type thinking. In terms of their mission, I think, their heartbeat is to, really set people free. In terms of the type of client, often I find the people that resonate with it are people that have got a degree of openness. So they've got the idea that life could be different. They just don't know how, but they've at least got the openness to try something new. And then often that'll be coupled with a particular area that they haven't mastered that's really important to them. And sometimes not mastered, but actually have been reversed or has gone backwards. They're really not happy with it. So I think those two things combined make a very effective client and the ability to grow fast. Someone that's not overly cynical, although, I wouldn't close the door to working with them. I've got a strategy for working with those people, but generally speaking, you're coming to the party if you've got openness, and then also you've got an area that you want to work on that you haven't mastered and that you really want to get figured out. Those two things together, I find if people have got those two qualities, they'll make a very good client for Ignite, and you'll find that you'll get the most out of it if you bring those two qualities to the table. I'm
sure you've seen different variations or different levels of coachability. How would you tell someone to be coachable?
Coachability to me is, number one, you've got to have desire. So the desire can come from pain in your life, so a reason that you want to change it, or desire for the better. It can come from because you really want to get something in your life. So, desire is number one, I think. They've got to have desire. Number two, they've got to be open to input. And number three, they've got to at least commit to the time slot it's going to take to create that change. And so they're going to be willing to put in the quote unquote work. And when I say work, it won't be work, it'll be inspired action, because all the Ignite stuff comes from a place of vision and excitement. And then it translates into inspired action. The difference between drudgery and inspired action is drudgery is there because, oh, my coach said I have to do it, therefore I have to do X, Y, and Z. It's my homework. Whereas inspired action comes out of a reason, the desire. So we always start with the reason and desire someone has. Then we give them the tools of how they're going to change it. And then it results in inspired action. And then we do a process called Kaizen. So we commit to that. So the next week we meet, we look at Kaizening, what worked, what didn't, how are we going to improve it for next week? And then we just see exponential transformations in the clients as they come week by week.
You triggered a thought in me too of what the opposite looks like. And I had a friend of mine ask me, when the negative motivation comes in, essentially arguments with his girlfriend, he will start asking me questions. So he's reacting to the problem, and that's when he's motivated. And then I told him the pattern, and I tell him how it is. Usually I'm like, hey man, you're not that coachable. Like you said you wanted to get started around payday. It's been payday a couple of days ago, and you didn't reach out to me. Like, it has to come from you. And I'm like, just explaining to him, and he said, well, how do you be coachable? And I told him, we just got to book a session because there's a lot to unpack there. One of the things I feel people are not coachable and they don't seek out mentors is because they never were taught how. The school system just gives you tests. They tell you how to think. They tell you what to learn, and they don't give you any autonomy. And that's not really how they did it back in the day either. So this is kind of a modern invention, the school system. And I'm speaking for America.
So yeah, you brought up a really good point about, the skill system. And I just wanted to touch on this again in the heartbeat of Ignite. But if you look at what you're talking about there, we've got the school system really at the meso level here, as you can see there, that has impacted the microculture in such a way, because what we're taught to learn in classrooms is exactly what you're saying, Antonio. We're taught to basically shut down our natural learning processes. We're taught to simply focus on regurgitating what we've been taught, and we're not taught to think for ourselves. How do you think that therefore impacts on the microculture?
It just trains, I've heard it simply put, it just trains employees who go work at cubicles.
100%. And so what's happened in our world over the last 50 years is we've had an exponential growth in technology, but our DNA system our software hasn't actually been updated to handle all that. So we're still living out of the Industrial Revolution, which everyone was trained in education-wise to be a good employee, to do what they're told, to punch in on time and to punch out on time, and to basically do a good 8 to 5 job. The problem with that, we're now living in a world that's completely different at this level, yet we're still operating many times in a school that isn't up with the times. So it's still reinforcing the old school values, the traditional values of the Industrial Revolution, and it's just totally outdated now.
Clearly. And I also want to include one of my, I guess, favorite things to talk about and teach people is your food nowadays with high fructose corn syrup, MSG. Obviously, everybody is different. Some are more gluten sensitive, some are more sugar, but regardless, the more processed food you eat, the harder it is for your ability to concentrate. And with social media nowadays, I need to watch this documentary on Netflix called, I think, The Social Dilemma. With social media nowadays, it's trained our attention spans to be more terrible. And with food blocking your ability to focus, and with our new addictions right here, they say like 40 or 50% are addicted to their cell phones. You're set up to fail. You're set up to not question or not ever learn or not ever get close to liberated.
100%. You've just touched on another tactic of, if we want to use the Matrix analogy, of what's going on there. And you're exactly right. That's just another tactic to keep us into fight-flight mode, into a depressed state. But, if we really look at the heartbeat of Ignite, to understand the individual, we have to look at this. And most people focus on this part here, the exterior. They just focus on the behavior, the results, and the unintended consequences. right?
Yeah.
Then the layer down is obviously the conscious layer, and then we get some people focusing on this. And then if we go down a layer underneath that, we've got the subconscious. So very few people get down to that. And then if you really want to get down to the deeper layers, then you go down to the unconscious, which is far down there. But of course, so Ignite to Understand the Individual is all about getting, the deeper you go, the more profound the change. So what's the heartbeat of Ignite is to give each individual total access to know how to change themselves at any level they choose to. And once they do that, what I believe we can see potentially will be a change in society at this level. So I believe we can impact society at this level of the macro system once we learn how to. So all outside change is all about inside change. But here's the caveat. Most people that aren't trained in this Ignite philosophy or way, they go to try and change the world first. They go and try and change massive global policy. They go and change the World Health Organization. They go and change through World War. They'll go and change through politics or through being a teacher. Now, all that's admirable stuff, but if you don't have the inside out paradigm corrected, then it doesn't matter how much you try and change on the outside world, you're doing it from a lens that's never going to be satisfied because it's seeing through a faulty lens.
Yep, totally agree. And what are some of the implications that you're seeing in the world today that show that we have it backwards?
Well, the implications, I see this all the time with people that live outside in lives. I mean, one example is I recently came across a client who she ended up becoming a doctor because she felt forced into it to please her father. Then she ended up pretty much getting into a marriage situation because the parents disapproved of her not being in one. Then she felt pressure to have children. Then, because none of them were taking responsibility, the husband, they were both living under the household. They had a clash with the parents. They thought they were too controlling. The husband left the situation. So she's left there with the kids now, depending on the parents, and continually going from the outside in, never taking responsibility. And I see this all the time right throughout society. People are making big term decisions, not just for themselves, but for other people, implicating lots of other people with big life decisions, but they've never taken responsibility of their own lives. So these implications have massive impact because they're going to teach people how to take ownership of what they have right at the start before going down the road of taking decisions they can't take back.
Exactly. You said it another way too, that you don't want to make decisions at the bottom of the mountain, or you don't want to make decisions when the tide is out, when it's low tide.
Well, yeah, that's touching on that Ignite principle of do not make your great decisions from the depths of the valley, rather make them from the glory of the mountaintop. And so whatever your mountain is, you want to be making your big decisions, your life consequential decisions from your best vantage point. Everything looks good one level above you when you haven't done the work to get to that level. But guess what? When you're at that level, suddenly you get access to all those things at that level, and now you want to go up another level. But if you sell yourself short and decide that's where you're going to camp for the rest of your life, that's all where you're going to be.
Amazing. What are some levels you're trying to climb?
In my life currently, one of my big focus right now is a mastery of the physical life. I mean, I've got that to a percentage I'm very happy with, but now it's, really refinement, how to really tweak, become a master. How do you become a master of your hormones? How do you become a master of, your micronutrition? All of those sort of next level stuff, when you've got the ability to focus on them, can make a big difference to your day-to-day well-being. So really enjoying continually climbing up those type of mountains.
Oh, I totally agree. The more I've been able to stay consistent with, I'm a big practitioner of hot yoga, and I've probably been consistent now for 7 or 8 months where I'm doing it at least 4 times a week, preferably. There's times where I was just doing it every single day for months. And it was, once you taught me how to come from the inspiration, the dream or the vision, the positive reinforcement, I stopped looking at fitness as a set of rigid practices, and I just started doing what my body feels like is good for me. One thing that I've noticed too is there's definitely different levels of nutrition. Some people don't really know anything, some just know some of the basics. And obviously, this is all subjective, but I'm starting to find that I'm at a point where this is a big level for me and for millennials who don't cook, is I cook almost all the time at home. I hardly buy food and eat out. And that's a big accomplishment for me because 2 years ago, I was eating out almost every day and I was gaining that extra 15, 20 pounds. So there's just so many different levels because now my goal is to cut out some sugars and some sweets. And so I have the fitness regimen there. And of course, everyone knows when you feel great and your body's doing great, you perform better in life. So much that my energy levels and my hormones maybe were, my adrenaline, my adrenal glands were fluctuating so much from caffeine that I cycled off it and I have zero caffeine in my diet now and my energy's through the roof still without any stimulants. And that's just one example of just those little hacks that you can keep inching forward. What have you found that you're doing?
Well, currently it's just really tweaking things to optimize my hormones. So looking specifically at things like, what have we got? We've got these type of things here. We've got like ZMA, which is just really good. Zinc, magnesium, really good for your hormones. And you've got something like Alpha Prime, which is very good for minimizing estrogen. And so one of the things that, of course, in upgrading myself, I'm learning all about how testosterone and estrogen work in the male body. As we age, we tend to get lower levels of testosterone and higher levels of estrogen. What does that mean for the male? Well, it means over time, we begin to aromatize our testosterone and produce increasing amounts of estrogen, which means that we begin to have more feminine characteristics. We lose our drive as a man, we lose our strength, we lose our muscles, and we lose a lot of our sense of well-being, our energy, our libido, all of those things. So one of the things that I've been mastering lately is really understanding the whole endocrine system of how that functions right throughout the body, but also how we can fuel it to optimize our levels of power, of energy, of strength, of libido, so that we don't have to go down the track. And I'm basing this all on science and I'm basing it on the best research, and people have actually got the results of how we can bring them back into the optimal range, not just a good range, but the optimal range to give us the best sense of well-being. So some of the tricks that I've been finding this absolutely incredible, and I've really been finding massive breakthroughs with some of these supplements.
That's amazing. That's my next step right there. I'm doing some, apple cider vinegar with some lemon and some other like cinnamon and stuff like that. And I do my green smoothies here and there. I just put them all in a blender. I don't eat that many vegetables as I should. So I just pound them down like that and just do some really good recipes. I feel like that for me is a level I'm proud at. And then those supplements are a good tip and tweak there. And there's really cool things too that I want to start up again, but with COVID, I have to wait. But I was listening to another Joe Rogan podcast and they were spending 45 minutes talking about the float tanks. Have you heard of those?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah.
I've done that 3 times or so and absolutely worth it and amazing. And it's fascinating to know that there's so many details to health and what your body will respond to. A friend of mine, Josh, I think you did one session with him there, but that person, he is getting his water from a natural spring nearby that this water gets collected into glass and it never touches plastic. And he said even then he's feeling the benefits of that, drinking that water.
Wow. Really?
And that sounds great, doesn't it? Just like, wow, that water is just, we know that would probably make a difference. And man.
No, you're 100% right. So one of the things I'm doing in the Ignite Health part of this is I'm creating a sort of a control panel to gauge your own health, just like you would on a panel, see what gauge is going up and down. You want to have one for your life. And one, as you tap into health, you can work out where your health's at. So you look at your hormone level, you can look at your energy level, at your nutrition, at your exercise, at your flexibility, and you can decide. And then Ignite's all about providing the tools, the best cutting edge tools to be the best fit for you. So this week it might not be about, supplementing with ZMA. This week it might be actually all about your flexibility, or the tool you might need to pull out of the bag will be green smoothies all week. But the more in tune you become with your body, the more you're going to know what tool to reach for that's going to give you the body it needs. It won't necessarily be the same every week, every month. It may change, but that's about cultivating the sensitivity within of what your mind and your body needs, and knowing what tools are available in the environment. And when you couple those two together, you develop that sensitivity, plus you develop the knowledge of what's out there. You develop the perfect hybrid of adding to your body what it needs.
I hear you. The knowledge of what's out there is because there's a lot. Cold showers, meditation, high intensity interval training. You even got a punching bag the other day, and
yeah,
that's pretty cool. Like I think I'm looking forward. Next couple of weeks, I'm gonna find me a MMA gym and start taking my fitness to more playful level too. And there's the thing about just the combat sports and martial arts is it's very visceral to another man. I would say if you haven't done stuff like that, I strongly recommend. It just feels great, and you make great friends too, and especially when you're beating each other up.
Definitely. There's so many holistic benefits to that in and of itself. Getting back to what you're saying, asking about the heartbeat of Ignite, you ask that question, how is Ignite different? And I think if you look at the default setting is to try and change the world, to make your impact in the world, right, from the outside in.
Yep.
But one thing that really stayed with me is that to change the world isn't necessarily changing the world, because how long are you going to change it for, right? To change the world is to change the world for one mind, because you change the world for them. And before you even try and help to change one person, unless you know how to change yourself, you can't change the world. You can't help an individual change. Yes, you might try and attempt change in the outside world, but if you don't know how to change yourself, you're still only looking out of your prior paradigm. So to get back of how this could be powerful, imagine a world where people stop being codependent. They stop depending on things they shouldn't depend to meet their needs. And so when you stop that, you stop what I was talking about before of someone trying to obey their parents and ending up bringing more kids into the world that they're not ready for, or getting involved in a marriage that they don't want to be in to please someone else. You're stopping a whole host of things happen when you learn how to go inside out. So how will that impact society? Will you imagine an individual now that can actually source the health and happiness from within? They're at a place now they can meet a partner who can be at similar terms. What impact's that going to have on the family? Well, the kids are going to notice that. The kids are going to realize that mum and dad are in harmony. They're going to realize that it's a safe place, and they're going to pick up those values. How is that then going to impact the mesosystem? Well, that's going to impact the mesosystem by kids not having to bully each other to feel better about themselves. It's going to impact the mesosystem by kids being willing to give to each other, to give from a sense of good self-esteem. There's going to be less poverty. There's going to be less reliance on the government. So when you go to the macro level, there's going to be less taxing on the whole system. There's going to be more people learning self-responsibility and caring for others. And then how's that going to impact on the philosophical level? Well, we can see that it's going to have the right hybrid of thinking. So even there, if we really want to see the heartbeat of Ignite, we can see, imagine a whole bunch of people living out their mission, living out their gifting at the meso and macro level of society.
I love what you're saying there too. And it made me think of one family in particular that understands exactly what you just said, because that's truly how you impact generations. And it's kind of like an elite, the elites always knew about this. There's a family called the Rothschilds, and I'm sure you're familiar with them too. And 500 or 600 years ago, the first one understood, got into banking, got wealthy. This is their motto on their family crest. You know those European beautiful looking emblems? It's Psalms 127:4-5 says, like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man who has a quiver full of them. So the Rothschilds had some wealth. They were in positions of power. And over the generations, many of them, they multiplied and established banks at other countries. And essentially, that is how you impact and retake back some of the power, is you understand that you change yourself, you change your family, you change, have lots of kids. I believe in having, smart, enlightened people need to have lots of kids to populate this world, because it's like adding droplets of water in a pool of poison. You want to balance the world out again. And this is part of the mission and the heartbeat of Ignite is to train and inspire other great leaders to help in this kind of, lack of better terms, this battle between success and failure, this battle between greatness and mediocrity, good and evil.
Absolutely. So, we're wrapping up. We're coming to the last sort of 5 minutes of the podcast. So, just in wrapping up what we've discussed, we sort of discussed the intro part of Ignite, who I was, where it sort of came out of, a few of my experiences. And then we looked at the 3 key verbs for Ignite, what really the heartbeat of is. But then also we looked at the cause, the general driving reason of why we're doing it and where we want to get people to. And then we looked at some implications of how that could work in the real world system, and how most people try and attempt change from the outside in. What do you think would be anything else? Well, let me ask you a question first, because I think this would be good to hear from your perspective as a potential recipient of Ignite in the early stages. What impacted your thinking? What drew you to Ignite most powerfully, and how did it benefit your life?
Well, luckily, and I know this is not as normal of way of finding a life coach as others might be, but I had already been in a system for many years of being coached and mentoring. And I knew how important it was, but I was in a state of transition where I didn't have a coach anymore. So I knew what to look for. And when I met you guys, I'm looking for how essentially kind of their vibe, the chemistry. And that's something that you can't really put into logical words. You blew me away with your knowledge, but I think you've kept me around this long because of your genuinity. And the results from what you've taught me has changed my stress levels, changed my confidence, it started taking me from what I thought was a good point to a much better point in finances, especially my career, which those are the 2 courses I've done, absolutely changed my financial future and has allowed me to have a lot less stress. I think I am so hard on myself that why am I not further along? What do I really want to be doing with my time? And your courses have crystal clear helped me define that and given me lots of tools to play with, to know at any time how to create GPS trackers and to create my own little milestone chart. And that's exactly what I love to do too. And I feel like anybody that also goes through these courses, you can't but help be living more consciously afterwards than before.
Well, I just want to say on that, I think if anyone's watching that is wondering, well, if it's going to be for them, I think you want to take a huge leaf out of Antonio's book, just a great example of a great student and teacher simultaneously, and the ability to teach, but the way you picked up on the concepts, you couldn't have been a better fitted student to take on board these lessons and to transform your life. And so I think if there was a student watching going, well, how can I get these results? How can I be sure? Well, just simply take a leaf out of Antonio's book. What did you bring to the table? Why was it so easy for you? And what did you have to do to make it work in your life? Because obviously the content was there, but what did you bring to the table to make it actually apply? Maybe for someone that's asking, how did he do it so well? What were the things you added to it?
If people do, anybody listening to this, I just strongly recommend to reach out to your website, send you an email, find you on Instagram, send you a message. And if you have the fortunate opportunity of meeting you in person, I know it just comes out of you, like, hey, what do you do, guys? Oh, I'm from New Zealand and I'm a life coach. That will spark anybody's interest that's on the path already, seeking out truth. So you can light the fire in somebody. Sometimes tragedies can light a fire in you of change and growth, or sometimes dumb luck, who knows? But I think that fire was already in me. That same fire is in you. And that's why it's called Ignite, because sometimes some people have just a little flicker of light. You have to protect that desire. You have to protect that dream that you have, and seek out coaches and mentors. And Ignite obviously will help fan that little flame into a burning bonfire. So you can't really teach desire. You can teach how to create a bigger desire and how to achieve it. But I don't know. What do you think about that answer? Do you think some people just have it in them to, when they hear you're a life coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think you can't teach desire. It's either there or it's not. But I think in terms of the qualities you brought to it, you brought enthusiasm, you brought openness, but then also you brought the ability to do the work. You'll go away and do the work. And so I think, whilst you can't teach desire, you can certainly apply commitment, and you can apply the practice and the belief to it. You can choose to believe and commit to it. So yeah, absolutely. Just in wrapping up, now that I've sort of explained the heartbeat of Ignite, and sort of what it's about, where it's come from, but anyone that fits into that camp, is open, is interested, then it's for you. Is there another question? Is there something else you want to ask me or Ignite a bit more, expound a bit more on anything before we wrap this up?
Nothing that urged me. I know I could keep asking you questions all day and then dive deep into something specific, but I really truly feel that people who get to know us and take some sessions will feel that heartbeat immediately. I also feel that although obviously there is a compensation part to this, people never feel like it's for the money, or they never feel like they're getting sold. It's always, we're giving them 10 times more of value than what's being exchanged. And I just want people to hear that too, and know what to expect, but nothing to ask.
I just want to comment on that. I think you brought up a very important point there. And I think it comes down to the heartbeat. Is Ignite's about, it's caught, not taught. So I think it's kind of what you're saying. It's kind of, words can't describe why you're attracted to it in one sense, because you've got to, we do an intro session for anyone that's curious. It's a free, non-obligatory intro session where you just do a consultancy, and we just take we lift up the bonnet of your life and we have a look at what's under the bonnet. And then we just offer what we see to you, and we go, what do you want to work on? This is what Ignite offers. And so it's no obligation. The other reason why this is never a hard sell, Ignite, because we're doing this from a non-fight flight place. We're doing this from a place of security. So the whole desire was to get into places of financial security. So we're not having to depend on this for our financial income. This is above and beyond what we need it for. Yes, of course, money makes the world go around. We're not going to turn it away, but at the same time, we're not driven by it. We're not, so we would rather make sure the product's excellent and it's a great fit for people, rather than drag someone along kicking and screaming. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested if the student's ready, the teacher will appear, and I'm interested to train up trainers that are ready to do that, because I know there's an overwhelming need out there. And once this taps into the markets, more and more people are coming forward that need it. So I don't have my time to invest in people that aren't wanting to be there. I'm just not interested in it. So I'm excited about what this can offer at a bigger level.
Exactly. Right on board, on page with you too. And I want to thank everybody for listening. If you know us personally, or if you enjoyed what you've heard, please give us a 5-star review. That helps a lot, especially since we're starting out. Podcast number 2. Always a pleasure, guys.
100%. It was an absolute pleasure being here. And thank you so much, Antonio, for another great podcast, and look forward to seeing any of you guys that are interested down the track.
All right, everybody. Take care and catch you later, guys.
See ya.